Welcome back to another Pokemon Sleeper Sunday, where once a month we go through a ton of raw cards, graded cards, and sealed products that I think are being slept on. And we are going to do a little giveaway today. All you have to do is make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell, leave a like, and then I want you to comment your favorite flying Pokemon. And I'm going to be giving away a Arceus V and V-Star Metal promo cards. These are from the UPC. Very nice cards. And I do have to announce the winner from last Sunday's giveaway, and that is at Wilfred Hernandez 1542. So just shoot me an email or hit me up on Instagram. I'll get those cards sent out to you ASAP. But before we get started, we do have to give a big thanks to our video sponsor real quick, and that is Platinum Protectors. If you guys need cases for any type of collectible, Platinum Protectors has got you covered. They have cases for action figures, comic books, diecast, Funko Pops, trading cards, and video games. And when it comes to trading cards, they have so many different selections. They got graded card sleeves. You know, they got stuff for Lord Kano, One Piece, all different price points. They got the nice thicker cases with the acrylic tops, or they got these really cheap cases, which do super good, and they're only a couple dollars a case. And then too, if you click my link in the description, you receive 10% off your first order of $50 or more. So definitely check them out. I'll have all the links in the description. But all right, let's get started. We got the Verizon. I really feel like these are some of the most underrated legendary Pokemon that we've ever gotten. I think they are so nice looking and beautiful card. Just starting to come up in price now. $1 or $2, got down to about 12. Now it's selling for 13, but very underrated card. I think it's super nice. Same thing with the Cobalion. You know, this one's a little bit more expensive. I do think it has a slightly better art, but I have no complaints right there. And these guys really don't get a ton of love. And to get them in beautiful illustration rares, you can't really beat that. This is at 21, and it's literally just dropped like $1 or $2 and already starting to level out. But I can't see them getting much cheaper. We got the Blaziken from Destined Rivals. I feel like this should be a $25, $30 card, to be honest. Last sold for this, 13, 15, 16, 14, especially how expensive Destined Rivals is getting sealed. You know, a ton of people are not opening this just because it's so expensive. Same thing with the Cynthia's Roserade. You know, this card just goes up and down, up to 19, down to 15. And last sold is right around 17, 18 bucks. But I think it's a super beautiful illustration rare. And again, I can see this thing being $25, $30, maybe even higher. Next, the Ethan's Typhlosion. I think this is one of the best illustration rares we've gotten in Pokemon history. And I think this thing could easily be a $50, even $60 card or something like that. It was at $54 with 103 items sold when it did come out. And now last sold 36, 45, 37, 35, 44. I have been seeing more sales in the 40s now, so I do think it is on its way up. Next, we have Articuno from Journey Together. I know this is a much smaller set, so the illustration rares are much easier to pull compared to like Black Bolt or White Flare, but still, it's Articuno. I have not heard one single person complain about this art. And I mean, a Journey Together booster box is pretty expensive, even though people are finding the sleeve boosters at Walmarts and Targets, but still, for 20 bucks for this thing, I mean, last sold 18, 22, 23. Not too bad. And I can see this thing being a $30, $35 card. Next, we have the Latios. This thing was $49 when it came out. Now last sold 29, 29. Did get down to about $23, $24. But still, at like $29, that's not a bad pickup in my opinion at all. And it has the potential to, you know, pop off. Next, we have the Gardevoir EX from Scarlet and Violet base set. So the other Gardevoir is going crazy from Paldean Fates, but this thing's still pretty affordable. The 1 year low is $25, but this card is normally around a $40 card. It has been this year. Now that's sold $60, $59, so it is starting to go up in price for sure. But I think it should be a $100 card. I think it's beautiful, tells an awesome story. We can get it shipped right now from a good seller for about 60 bucks. Next, the Salamence EX. I also think this is one of the coolest Pokemon we've ever gotten. I've never heard anybody say they don't like Salamence, so I'm just confused on why this card isn't doing much better. It was at $133 when it came out, tons of sales, and now that's sold $84, $77, $84, and $79. So it's going up in price a couple dollars. It was at about $74, $75 all day long, but still a beautiful card. And I've seen this card a lot in person. I think it looks much nicer in person, like the detail. You can see it a little bit better, but it's a beautiful scene. You know, no weird crown or anything like that. You got to think no weird crown, just a super clean art of a pretty popular Pokemon. Next, we have the Altaria EX. Same thing, you know, no crown, just a beautiful clean art. This is from Paradox Rift. This card did get up to $70 once. Now that's sold $43, $44, $44. It's just, I feel like Altaria isn't the most popular Pokemon, but pretty well known, and you know, most people enjoy Altaria. It's just not, you know, a ton of people's favorites probably. But next we have the Palafin from Prismatic Evolutions. Now, I know a lot of people might not like Palafin, even though I enjoyed Palafin because I felt like it was one of the more unique Pokemon that we actually got in Generation 9. But the artist, this guy's a famous manga artist and, is super, super famous. And this is his first ever Pokemon card. So maybe his next card is going to be of a lot more popular Pokemon. And you never know. It could take off. He could be the next hot artist in the Pokemon TCG. But I think the art's super cool. And you gotta think, this card was $130. And it got down to $54, and it's starting to come back up in price a little bit right now. Last sold $58, $60, $59, $58. So still, not too bad. Especially, we know how tough the pull rates are for Prismatic. And it would be very tough for you to go pull this card. So for $50, $60, not terrible. And it has potential to move up further if this artist does more work for Pokemon. Next, we have the Jolteon. This is basically the cheapest evolution from Prismatic Evolutions besides Eevee. This just passed Flareon. But a lot of the evolutions are starting to go back up in price. And I can see this thing going back up to 160, 170, 180. So if you guys are getting sick of waiting and you need this for a set, it might be a decent time to pick this card up. But yeah, last sold 149, 150, 135, 149. So if you can find this card in the 30s, that's not too bad in my opinion, especially, it was a $330 card. And then, we have 34 sales at 260, just nonstop. Next, 151. Now, I do think the trainers are pretty undervalued at the moment. Giovanni's Charisma, Erica's Invitation. But I could honestly see 151, really taking off. And also Alakazam at $57. I still feel like that should be a $70 card. I really feel like Venusaur should be $115. Blastoise should be $130, $140. Zapdos $160, Charizard, already at $300. So this is a type of set to where if someone brings me some clean 151 cards, I'm going to buy them. Even though, Zapdos is the most expensive it's probably ever been right now. Blastoise is getting up there, Venusaur's getting up there, but still, they're not too bad compared to the rest of the cards in the Scarlet and Violet era. We just looked at Salamence, a card that a lot of people don't care about right now, compared to a Blastoise and Venusaur, which we know, thousands and thousands and thousands of people care about and are chasing and trying to complete this master set because this is definitely the most popular set in the Scarlet and Violet era, which makes sense. I mean, it's Gen 1. See, I just thought I'd throw this in here and mention that I could definitely see these cards getting even more expensive if you really compare them to the rest of the Scarlet and Violet era and how much more popular these cards are than, the other cards in the era. And same thing with celebrations. I know some of this stuff seems expensive, but I'm telling you, I feel like it could get a lot more expensive. Umbreon is not easy to pull. People act like you can just open a few packs and pull an Umbreon. But you can go back and watch PokeRev, him chasing this card. It took him a long time. Market price $98. The Shiny Magikarp market price $45. You got to think, the original Umbreon card is thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. I could see this card being a $200 card. Blastoise is still only $15. Venusaur is still only $10. And then same thing with the Japanese side, which I hear literally no one ever talk about. But they also have a 25th anniversary, and they're also going to have a 30th anniversary. And these cards look 100 times better. A lot of them are worth a little bit more. Venusaur, market price $36, Blastoise $41. Their Shiny Magikarp is about the same. Their Umbreon Gold Star is worth a little bit more. And so is Armew, actually. I'm going to put that in the next Market Monday. But, even their Pikachu just looks crazy. Their Mega Rayquaza is much cheaper than ours. But yeah, I'm a big fan of this on the Japanese side as well. So keep your eye out for that. I can definitely see a lot of these things going absolutely crazy when we get to the 30th. And same thing with Generations. People never talk about Generations as an anniversary set, but this is the 20th anniversary set. We got some of the best steel products we've ever gotten, which are getting tougher and tougher to find in really clean condition. Every time I see one of these, I'm willing to buy them at full market price if they're mint. They're never mint. There's always a dent, always something. And some of these Generations cards are very cheap. Like this Gardevoir EX from the Radiant Collection, number 30 out of 32. Beautiful card. And I mentioned this card as soon as they announced the new Mega Gardevoir, where it shows all the different Gardevoirs, because it really, really reminded me of this card. And this card is still very, very affordable. And Generations is getting crazy expensive. But yeah, there's some cool cards in here for sure that are still very cheap, getting pretty old. So not too bad. This Charizard's finally getting some love. I've talked about it quite a few times because it was $15, $20. And you got to get the Charmeleon and Charmander to go with it. It's one of the coolest, story card scenes that we've ever gotten. Next, the Galarian Zapdos is going down in price, got up to about $5. Now that's sold $2.60. Then we got 9 at $3.25, $2 and $3.23. This is the Crown Zenith tin promo. And you got to think, beautiful arts. I love those tins so much because it's just Crown Zenith in them. Funnest set in Pokemon history to open. Beautiful cards. So yeah, I'm a big fan of these guys. And we got the Galarian Articuno too. This one's getting up there a little bit. Last sold $5.28, $5.12. So we got 19 of them at $4.56. And I know, you know, that might seem expensive, but when this promo is $15, $20, $25, you're not going to care that you had to pay $5 instead of $2 or $3. Now for the big boy, we got the Galarian Moltres. Now this is done by Shinji Kanda. This is the same artist who did the Magikarp and the Seismitoad and the Giratina. Now last sold for this one, $5.15, which doesn't make sense. Probably Japanese maybe, I'm not sure. But before that, 23, 19, 19, and 20. So this card is definitely getting expensive. You got to think the tin is still only $80, maybe $90 now. The other tins are around 60-ish. And one thing with these cards too, they're not the easiest to grade, so always keep your eye out for a minty one. That's one thing. I am willing to overpay on some stuff, as long as it's minty. Sealed products and cards. So always look for minty stuff whenever you can. Next, we're going to hop to PokeDaddy here. Check out some PSA 10 sales. So as you guys know, the first few sets for the Scarlet and Violet era, the print quality was very, very rough with the illustration rares, and they're all super tough to grade. So we have the Dondozo here. This is from Scarlet and Violet base set. I think it's one of the best arts in the set, and I think this is one of the cooler Generation 9 Pokemon. Very low pop, 333 in a 10 and 1,034 in a 9, 257 in a 8. So pretty tough to grade. This was selling for $357. Got down to 82, and now last sold 160. And we got another one at 158, 165. Not terrible for how hard this card is to grade. And, Scarlet and Violet base set is getting very old. Probably not going to get any more reprints. And then one thing about newer Pokemon, it takes quite a few years for people to really, open up and get used to these guys to where a couple of these could be fan favorites in a few years. You never know. Next, we got the Marill, a lot more well-known Pokemon. This was selling for almost $500. Another low pop, 588 in a 10, 1,677 in a 9, 832 in an 8. And last sold for this one, $295. We got one at $314. Another one at $250. And another one at $269. Someone offered me one literally a couple weeks ago for like $215. And I should have bought it, but I just bought a massive lot. So yeah, if you can find this one in the low 200s, I feel like it's not a bad pickup. Next, we got the Palmet. Now, I love the cards that have all three evolutions in the same card. Those are some of my all-time favorite ones. You really can't beat that. This card got up to $250. Now last sold $119. Before that, $115. Very affordable. Only 57 of these in a 10, and 236 in a 9, and 78 in an 8. And I know these are newer Pokemon, but you never know what's going to happen in the future. Some of these could be fan favorites in a few years. It's possible. Next, we got the Mabastive, probably the best storyline that we've ever gotten in Pokemon. Super touching storyline. And this says 107 in a 10, 331 in a 9. And last sold in a 10 was $125. Before that was $100. So you can find this card pretty cheap. And again, tough to grade. Next, we got the Tropius. This one I threw in because this is one of my favorite Pokemon, and I'm pretty biased. But very, very cheap. Last sold in a 10, 119, 128, and I think I just seen one on eBay sell for like $90. So, 167 in a 10, 355 in a 9, 181 in an 8. Next, we got the Houndour. Pretty popular Pokemon. This one has a lot more graded, but still tough to grade. 1,172 in a 10. 2,466 in a 9, and 721 in an 8. And this card got up to $225. Now last sold $100 and $110. Right, next, we're getting to some sealed. So any Sword and Shield ETB, to be honest, I would probably buy at the moment. Just make sure it's minty. You have no idea how many people bring ETBs at card shows and they pull them out of their backpack loose. And there's always a dent. There's always a tear almost every single time. So please take care of your booster boxes and your ETBs if you ever plan on selling them in the future. If you plan on opening them down the road, then it doesn't matter. But if you do plan on reselling them, bubble wrap them at the very least, or get those platinum protector cases. It's $2 a case. You know, just do whatever you can. But I really feel like the Evolving Skies ETB would be my first purchase here, just because, you know, for how expensive the booster box should be, this thing should be at least $500-$600, and it's Evolving Skies, so I'm a big fan of that one. But like I said, any of them, if they are super, super minty, and I know this just seems weird buying these ETBs and it seems kind of expensive, but I'm telling you, it seems like that every single generation, and then you're kicking yourself, you know, when you didn't buy them. Like when I was buying Unified Minds ETBs for, you know, $80 an ETB, you know, it didn't feel right. I'm like, why am I buying this? But I just kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it, and now they're, you know, $500 something, probably more now. And I even did the same thing with a lot of these other Sword and Shield ETBs. Like I made a ton of videos. I made one specifically on Evolving Skies ETBs when they were $80 an ETB, telling people, I know it seems kind of expensive, but I promise you these will get a lot more, and they're doing pretty good now. So yeah, just always look for something minty. Next, we got Sword and Shield booster boxes. Battle Styles is still pretty undervalued, to be honest, at $286, but Astral Radiance at $387 market price isn't bad. Fusion's right at $1,000 now. That's kind of crazy. But Brilliant Stars, market price $540. I'd rather have 2 Brilliants than 1 Fusion, in my opinion. I really feel like Brilliant Stars has a really good chance of taking off. If that Charizard ever goes crazy, or, you know, the trainer gallery with the Umbreon and stuff ever goes crazy, that box will follow. Chilling Reign at $574 is not bad. It has the second most alternate arts in the Sword and Shield era, besides Crown Zenith, but I'm talking like true hard to pull alternate arts, not trainer galleries or Galarian galleries or anything like that. Lost Origin market price $822. It's getting kind of expensive. I mean, like I said, only if it's super minty. I'd probably pass on Vivid Voltage. I'd much rather have Battle Styles. I'd probably skip Vivid Voltage. I definitely would rather have Battle Styles over Vivid. They're around the same price. And honestly, Rebel Clash is not a bad pickup either if you can find that one nice, because people are definitely going to need that one in the future to complete their master sets of every booster box, and it's probably the rarest booster box here. And even same thing with the Rebel Clash ETB. I know it's not a very good set, but it's definitely the shortest printed set in the entire, you know, Sword and Shield era, and people are going to need them for sure, and they've, you know, completely leveled out. But all right, now we're going to jump to Pokemon Center ETBs. I even had some people who watched my channel that brought me Pokemon Center ETBs at a show. They were another vendor because they heard I was buying them. And when I really inspected them, they all had like a hole or a dent or whatever. So I did pass. So just looking for really nice ones, like I've been saying nonstop. But a lot of these are getting pretty expensive, which is why I'm getting pickier and pickier with the condition. But yeah, it just sucks. I hope a lot of people were able to get the Phantasmal Flames Pokemon Center ETB. It's nice they bumped it up to 2, but that means a lot of other people weren't able to get it. But yeah, these prices are just nuts. I'm definitely going to go over a ton of these on Market Monday again. But long term, I honestly feel really safe buying any of these Pokemon Center ETBs. You know, we could definitely hit a cool spot if we get a couple bad sets in a row, and some of these could definitely go down in price. But, you know, like I said, long run, I'm not too worried at all for these, just because it's basically the only somewhat exclusive English product that we get. Next, we have the Eevee Heroes Japanese booster box. In this entire boom, this thing's really only gone up like 100, maybe 150. So again, if you see these out in the wild, I would definitely probably pick one up, especially if you don't have anything Eevee Heroes. And one thing to note too, some of these Evolutions are actually worth more than their English counterparts for Evolving Skies. So, you know, it's a solid pickup. I just feel like no one ever really talks about it. Someone even brought it up in my last What If Wednesday, but I was already going to add it to this video because, yeah, no one ever talks about it. And last on the list, the Chinese exclusive art rares. I think these are a solid pickup around, you know, $40, $50 for Sylveon, Eevee, Leafeon right here, $48. Umbreon's getting cheaper again. Umbreon was over $200. Now that's sold, you know, $190 right there. We got a $40 Eevee right there. But yeah, the art's beautiful. They're Evolutions. They're exclusive. And I know it's the Chinese Pokemon, but so many people say they only collect Pokemon just for the arts. They don't care what it actually says on the card. So if you don't care what it says on the card, it shouldn't matter if it's Chinese or Japanese. And the condition on some of these, I've been seeing a lot more in person. Some are hit or miss. You know, some are pretty chewed up, but a couple of them I've seen are pretty clean. Look at this Eevee sold for $33 plus $6 in shipping. So $39 for that Eevee. Not too shabby. But if you are buying Chinese cards or booster boxes, just be extra careful because there's a lot of people out there trying to fake them, you know, because it's the new thing and they're getting pretty hot and popular. And that's another thing I forgot to add is the Chinese booster boxes to this list. If you can get them from a legit seller, I think they're a good pickup because I can't see them going back and trying to reprint every single set like crazy numbers just because they are so far behind and they're trying to catch up. I mean, they're still doing their 151 stuff. So, like I said, from a legit seller, I feel like they are a decent hold. I got some myself, picked them up last month. And I think the new gem pack has like 4 or 5 Chinese exclusive illustration rares. And there's one thing you do have to remember. There's a very, very small chance that maybe one day English gets some of these arts or Japanese gets some of these arts, which would absolutely destroy the value of a lot of these cards. So you have to keep that in mind. It is slightly risky, but in my opinion, I can't see them doing that, to be honest. So I feel like we're pretty safe, but there's always a very small chance. Because Pokemon can technically do whatever they want. They could technically reprint base set if they really wanted to, even though they never would, but they technically could. But alright, that was today's Pokemon Sleeper Sunday. If you guys do like this content, please make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave a like, and then like I mentioned earlier, comment your favorite flying Pokemon, and you guys have to hit that like button to be entered into this giveaway. And then too, if you guys want to support more, you guys can check out my Instagram, my TikTok, or my YouTube membership. It's only 99 cents a month. And then too, if you guys want to watch my last Pokemon Flying Friday, which we didn't have a ton of stuff going down, but some massive cards are moving down, which I was kind of shocked, click this video here. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.